It's a privilege to have Professor Satyendra Dhiman from Woodbury University, Burbank, United States, California to India this particular winter. Hearty welcome, Professor Saab. It's such a pleasure to have you over here as the president of ICSI, International Chamber for Service Industry. Ladies and gentlemen, it's very rare in life that you are a student in India and you are a trainer, teacher, educator in India, and thereafter you move to United States. You become student over there, and thereafter you become teacher over there. You author a number of books while being in India, and also a gold medalist from Punjab University. And after going to United States, you take on your teaching assignment, become an educator, and at the same time, you author a number of books there as well. It's a rare combination. Professor Saab, you are privileged by the God Almighty. And it's a privilege for all of us. Today you are visiting and you are here with us in this August gathering. We would like to know something about global perspective of education system, what all is happening globally, and then you can give us what's going on in the United States before we come to the Indian perspective. Let's have your views on that.
Sure. First of all, I am delighted to be here amidst this August gathering and my wonderful friend Dr. Sharma here. It is always a pleasure to come back to your country and visit and kind of connect with your, or I should say reconnect with your roots. So that's what I'm doing. Before we go to the international scene, let me share something about the US education system. There are some features which are different, there are some features which are same. So let's be clear about what we are talking about, and then we can talk about global or international arena. In the US, just like in India, we have what is called K through 12. K through 12 meaning 10 up to 10 plus 2. So शुरू से लेकर end तक schooling is called K through 12. That we call high school. And then there is a degree called AA degree, associate degree. That particular degree can be rendered or given in many ways. There are special colleges called junior colleges. We don't have that concept exactly in India, but they have a very interesting set of colleges called junior colleges. They are state colleges, meaning government colleges, where students from high school can go to those particular colleges, which give you a kind of, it's a midway approach to going from a school to a university. So you go to those colleges. Then there are private universities which offer associate degrees, bachelor degrees, master's degrees, and then up to PhD level. Now the system is divided like this. 10 plus 2 is 1, K through 12, that's high school. After that you have junior colleges. Then you have within state, there are different layers. For example, I'm based in California. Over there we have what is called Cal State System, California State System of Education. They have universities which offer mostly up to the master's degree, and some universities offer a PhD in conjunction with a major university, for example. So you have college schools, junior colleges, you have private universities and colleges, and then you have within the state, you have Cal State System in the California. Then there is the highest branch of education in California. It is called UC system, University of California. Similarly, different state, University of New York, they have all over the states. Those are, for example, if I may say that University of California system is probably the most advanced public education system in the world. There is no other system which comes very close. We have a university called University of Berkeley, where people have written books, great books. Some of them have won Nobel Prizes also. So that is the most distinguished elite form of education that you can get. Other states also have it, but California's UC system is very, very important. UCLA, some of you might have heard the name, is an important university within. The other interesting thing is over there people will say school. School does not mean school. School can mean a college, a university. School can mean a particular department within a university. For example, if you come to United States and you say, oh, you teach at this school, that does not mean you teach at high school. That means you may be teaching at a university, a school within a university. So this is a basic structure that everybody has to follow. The public school system is very, very good, meaning there are so many checks and balances. For example, I have 3 boys, all of them went to public school, not private schools. We may have afforded that, we might have afforded that, but myself and my wife chose to not send our children to the private school institution. Only public school from K through 12, they went to those systems. Then after college, you have a choice. One of my eldest son is going to state system. He was a student at UCLA. Then he decided to go to the Cal State system as such. My wife also works at Cal State system, but I teach at a university, which is a private university, which is called Woodbury University, Burbank, California.
When we talk about the global perspective now, you have given a wonderful scenario as far as the United States is concerned. Generally, it is considered that Finland has got one of the best education systems. Would you like to highlight something onto that in the global perspective?
Sure. I am not too much familiar with the Finland system, so I will ask you kindly to help me understand what the system is.
What basically we have picked up is that to take out the creativity of every child, Finland has got a wonderful model as far as the education system is concerned. And then more than an examination, there is a collaboration. You know, they want a collective efforts to be done by everybody. That's another part. You were talking about, this morning when we were sharing, you mentioned something about Sweden or Denmark.
Denmark, I'm told that Denmark also has a very good system. Now, one has to understand, as I indicated earlier, in the United States, the schools are very, very good. Of course, every country has their own challenges, so there are problems at schools like any country, but the education system as such is so good that I cannot even describe. So you can understand a person who was educated at public schools here, government schools, and then you go there. So every now and then, the parents will be invited, not only just parent-teacher meetings, but we will be invited on certain occasions. It's called back to school night, one particular event. So when I went there, I saw the setup of those schools, the assessment standards, the evaluation standards, the teacher training programs, they are absolutely the best. I was very amazed. I said, if people in India could be exposed to that kind of education system, the revolution can happen. But then at the same time, I compared my education. At that time, we didn't have those facilities. While we didn't have those facilities, but we had focus and concentration. Now kids are more distracted thanks to social media. So, overall, I don't know how much learning takes place, even if you have the best education. So I have my own views about those things. But as far as the opportunities are concerned, as far as the facilities are concerned, as far as, books and all that, every student in high school, up to high school, is given books free by the state. Every book is given free. And the classroom is so equipped. It has central announcement system. In the morning there's a prayer, and depending upon which kind of school it is, a faith-based school, and so on and so forth. But the facilities, the number of television monitors, number of computers, iMacs and all that within a classroom is unimaginable. And there's a reason for that, because in America, every tax-paying person contributes to the school system. Every tax-paying person contributes to the construction of roads. That's why those are. But because of that perfect system, the government is able to invest into the education, and it is splendid as far as the education is concerned.
As you travel, very frequently to other countries also to be a part of the education process, education system. So besides United States, would you like to, because recently you were in Switzerland also, would you like to share something about a little bit on to the global perspective of education of those countries as well?
Yes, I was given the opportunity to work with certain countries other than America. Early on, in the year 2000 or 1999, I was invited to El Salvador. El Salvador is a country in South America. I was invited to develop an e-commerce program over there. But then e-commerce market changed, as you know, it becomes a common thing. But I was invited by the University of Francisco Gavidia, something like that. So I traveled there. Then I have done some consulting work in Canada. I do some accreditation. You know, many universities apply for recognition or accreditation to the United States.
Okay.
So I work with the agency called ACBSP, and it's kind of professional contribution. We do service only. It's not much from the standpoint of remuneration or something. We work for a very small honorarium. But the idea is that a university, for example, an Indian university can apply for a US accreditation, the body that I'm working with. I'm not an employee of that body, but we just work as a consultant or a professional helping them. So that university which applies for accreditation, a mentor is assigned for 2 to 3 years. I have served as a mentor to several universities in India, as well as in Canada, as well as in the United States, as well as in Europe. Recently, I was the school that Dr. Sharma has alluded to. It's a sustainability management school. SUMAS, it's called SUMAS, it's in Geneva, small town in Geneva. They offer the first sustainability MBA program in Europe. So I was assigned as a mentor for that school for 3 years. And I helped them build their curriculum from ground zero. When I went there, basically there was not much for me to. So I not only acted as a mentor, but also helped them to build their curriculum. Now, before I came here, we got the good news that they were accredited within 3 years. Most of the schools, other I would say 100% of the schools I have mentored, they get accredited in the very first attempt.
Very nice.
So there was no, you go there and no credit. Because the idea is, my goal is that if you work with some organization, you give your best and you tell them what's the best thing to do, the best practices. So that was one school. But a few months ago, I was in Paris conducting evaluation for a hospitality management school, and I mentioned to you, Dr. Sharma, about that when I went there. That school was applying for re-accreditation. They were already accredited. After 10 years, they have to renew it. So I led the team of 3 people. I was the leader, team lead of, it's called peer review site visit team. You know, we are all peers, professors from different universities. We go to a university, we look at their complete management system, from leadership to strategic planning, to customer focus, to evaluation of other services, to evaluation of their learning outcomes and so on and so forth. So that particular perspective provided me the real insight into how those universities work. Fundamentally, it is not different from US. If it is different, they try to, you have to understand, United States has, in my opinion, the most sophisticated higher education system in the world. There's no question about that. If you're looking for, in any field for that matter, US can offer the best of the best higher education system in the world. So many international schools try to sort of emulate the example of United States.
That's really nice to have your perspective, from the other countries' comparison with the United States. Now, would you like to give some kind of a synthesis or a conclusion? Because in the next episode, I will be talking more on the Indian perspective. And this part, would you like to conclude while giving some sermon to our Indian educators, our youth, our students, our system, our policy, whatsoever we have got in India?
I think, the best approach to education in the United States is based on accreditation. Accreditation is a body of independent professional reviewers who come to the university and they look at your system from ground up to the graduation of the students and the assessment of learning, and they give you approval of that. For example, the school I teach, Woodbury University, it is accredited by, there's a regional accreditation. You have to have that. If you don't have it, you cannot be in the education business. Then at the top of that, you apply for a professional accreditation. So we have the accreditation regarding which I serve as a mentor and team lead. But then we also have second highest accreditation in business. It is called AACBSP. Only 5% schools, business schools in the world are accredited by that. The other body, only 12 to 15% schools are accredited by that. For example, in India, I'm told that there are 1 or 2 schools out of thousands that we have are accredited by AACBSP, and maybe 13 to 14 schools are accredited by ACBSP. Out of those 13 and 14, I was involved with 8 or 9 schools, either as a mentor or as a team lead or as a team player or as a team member of that. So what that does is you are measured with the best of the best. It's a benchmarking process. It's a process, it's like a level playing field. Our university has the same accreditation as other top universities have. So even if the university is not size-wise that big, name brand-wise, not as well known as many well-known universities are, but one thing is clear, we were measured against the same quality standards as those universities have been. So this is one way of proving that our curriculum is not any less than those big universities.
Okay.
If we can bring something like that to India, that will provide us that benchmark to compare with international standards. I think that one particular thing is lacking in our education system in India, and we will probably talk more about that in the next episode.
So you agree with the theme which we have chosen for this entire series, this episode, empowering education and transforming India?
Yes, that is the only way to do that.
Okay. Let's have our audience, if somebody has got any question.
My name is Chitra Kapoor, and I want to ask that in India, students do feel that they have an educational stress every time, from the very beginning of their education till the higher education level. So, is there any kind of an educational stress for the foreign students, especially in USA? What do you have to say about it, sir?
Thank you. It's a very good question.
Stress is a very
Right.
important factor, which has to be
Actually,
taken.
there is no stress of education. The stress comes from the tests, the final exams. So as far as that is concerned, I think both students are same. When I used to teach here, students used to feel the same way. But I believe that in India, somehow the way the education system is, we put too much importance on the final exam. Whereas in US, we may have quizzes, midterms and all that. And all of them can also contribute towards the calculation of the final grade. But from the point of view of student being stressful, I think the stress level is almost same. There is one vital difference in the United States, especially at the university level I teach. Currently I teach at the MBA level only. Before I used to teach BBA and MBA both. At the MBA level, for example, we do not give in-class tests for the most part. Accounting, finance may be an exception. I teach leadership. It is all based on projects. My class is based on, the class meets for 7 weeks, from 6 to 10 in the evening. One of the Monday through Thursday, one of those 4 days. In each session, the structure is this. I will use 20-30 minutes in the beginning for orientation for the session. Then we will open for discussion. Everybody has prepared based on their readings, so everybody is prepared to discuss things. So I will ask a provocative question.
Okay.
I will say, so, do you think that women leaders are better than men as leaders? Or do you think that leaders are born or they are developed? So that will set the discussion, and students will use their learning, their readings to participate in the class. So class participation in, for example, my classes has almost 30% weightage, and which is every week. Then we have what is called, so everybody has to write a class summary, a critical summary of the class. What did they learn? How will they apply it with examples? So that is one part of the testing. Then we go to, there is no quiz or midterm in the class as such. Each student writes a scholarly paper at the end. It is based on research on leadership, change management, all of those interesting things like emotional intelligence, social.
At the end means after 7 weeks?
Meaning at the 7th week,
Okay,
that is the
7th week.
And each class has group project. For example, they will be, in my classes, one of the things that I require is called social action project. Each student or each group of students, each team has to select a project in which they can make a difference in the society. For example, they may be working with a homeless shelter. They may be working with a particular organization which helps women and children. They may be working with a children's hospital. They go there, they create some software for them, they create a flyer for them. In one of my classes, student created a sort of website for an animal shelter place nearby. And all of this information is then available on YouTube. If I can give you a link, you can go there and see student projects. So this is social action project. Each student also writes a scholarly paper based on APA writing style. So combination of that gives you the grade. So the stress is kind of distributed rather than it is at the end. Now the final, there is no final exam as such, there is a project. But the student is preparing for that throughout 7 weeks. So if I can say, the stress may be more towards the final exams because I remember my own days as a student here. I still sometimes wake up at night, like dreaming that I'm getting late to my MCOM exam, and that was almost 38 years ago. So the stress was that much, that it was so much important for me to do what I was doing. That type of stress is not there because final exams, at least at the master's level, they are not as structured as we have it here. They are project-based.
Okay. So, my question was also about the physical stress that the students bear at the primary and middle education level. Like they have so many books, the heavy bags.
Right.
So is that similar
Yes.
in abroad also?
I can address that part because having, since, I have seen my 3 boys grow up in schools and high school, so I can address to that. I do not think that I have seen so heavy bags that students carry in India. I have not seen that in the United States. As I said, the books are provided by the school, and mostly not, I would say maybe math and English, you can bring those books home. But most of the other books like social sciences and sciences and some other project, you leave those books at school. So the bag is not that heavy too, about the physical stress. The other thing is, there are school buses. Now, this is, ITFT is a private institution, so you have your buses. Government schools may also have buses, but school buses are very common in public schools in the United States. So the transportation stress is taken care of, and it is very well guarded, very well secured mechanism. So as far as there is another thing that you have some tuition thing here,
Yeah.
Madam was asking.
Extra coaching.
In the evening, coaching, you have the student go to somebody comes to your home. That thing is not there in America at all. In America, if I may say, that if whatever you learn in school, no teacher can go to a person's home and then teach and get extra money. You can put your child to some other learning center for some help, but it is not as we have it here. Whatever is taught within a school, and the system is very good. You start at 7:30 in the morning. I think in the school it goes up to 3:30. So they cover a very wide range of subjects. So I would say that because the emphasis is not on quantity as much as we have in India, the physical stress is less over there. And the emphasis is more on creativity, learning, and hence I would say that we put too much emphasis on quantity in our country, and that also is responsible for what kind of students they turn out to be later on, I would say.
So I think
Thank
what
you,
we
sir.
pick up from the first episode over here, there has to be a stress-free learning system,
Yes.
learning environment. The weightage part of the bag has to be reduced, maybe in the digital era, because ICT and particularly technology playing very important role, and good inferences which we have drawn from the global perspective from Professor Dhiman. So we thank you for joining us over here in the first episode of Empowering Education and Transforming India and giving us the global perspective. I'm sure in the next episode we will take direct hit on to the Indian education system, what all is happening over here, and that will take on the rest of the questions as well. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.